Hello and a warm welcome to this video, to the studio. My name is Orla if you're new here, and I'm an artist and I create work inspired by my love for nature and the outdoors. And I also document my creative process through videos here on YouTube. So today in this video, I really wanted to share 5 tips that have really helped me get working outside from nature, from life, and just get out of the studio and work in the real world. So if you've been wanting to start working from life for a while, but you're not sure where to start, I hope these give you a little bit of guidance to ease you into the process. And if you're a pro and you've done this loads before, but you're looking for that confidence boost after a wee breakaway, I hope that this gives you the nudge in the right direction to get outside again. And stay tuned to the end of this video to hear a little bit about the benefits that working outside has brought me in my own art practice, and that could also help you in yours. The 5 tips that we'll be covering in this video explore number 1, how to get over the fear of that blank page. Number 2, how to keep things simple. Number 3, how to keep it more comfortable, because working outside around other people can be daunting. Number 4, how to take the pressure off. And lastly, number 5, how to make things feel easier overall. Tip number 1. How to get over the fear of a blank page. If you've watched my videos before, you already know what I'm going to say. But we're going to prepare our pages with a colour wash. We're going to give ourselves a set of backgrounds so that when we get outside, we have something to respond to, something to work on top of. And it also gives us an additional colour into our colour palette, or an additional material into our mixed media set. So before we go anywhere, I love to do this ahead of my trip. I nearly always work on top of colours, and I find that having that base really helps take that pressure off getting going, because there's already something down. It's a really great way to inject more colour into your research sketches, especially if you are taking limited materials. I think working on top of the background not only makes it easier to start when you're out and about, but it somehow elevates a very simple sketch into something more interesting with more depth. I tend to use watercolours or acrylic to prep my sketchbook pages. Sometimes I do this when I'm at the end of a general painting session at home, and this is so that I can use up the excess paint that I've left on my brush or mixed too much of in my palette, and is a really great way to help to save some of the paint from going down the drain or getting wasted. Whilst our sketchbook pages are drying, let's move on to point 2, which is all about keeping things simple. And in this tip, I'm going to share what I bring basically with me on a sketching trip. As the title probably suggests, keeping things simple means not bringing everything in your kitchen sink with you. And I will say as a caveat before we go any further, if you have paper and a pen or a pencil, that's all you need to get started. But if you'd like to know what I bring with me in terms of mixed materials, to try and get a balance between not carrying everything but having a little bit of variety and option with you when you're outside working, then hopefully this tip will help with that. This tip has evolved from my own experience of going up mountains, going on camping trips, or even just to the local park with way too many things. And the reality is the materials aren't suited to the climate, to the environment, to how long I actually want to spend working. Or they're just really heavy and cumbersome. So this is kind of my lightweight setup for you. This also adapts depending on what materials I'm enjoying at the time. So this isn't a go out and buy these things because I use them video. This is what I'm enjoying at the moment. Maybe it gives you some ideas of how to adapt your own kit to suit. In general, I'm looking for a tool or a material that gives me a nice line. One that gives me good colour coverage nice and quickly and easily. And lastly, that gives me texture, a contrasting texture to those previous 2. So that way you're going to get a bit of a variety in your drawing. And if you're a mixed media artist like I am, that's really, really important. So today for my session, I'm going to bring my brand new Inktense pencils. I'm getting used to these, so I want to use this session to test them out. But basically when you add water to these, they spread like paint, so they're a really good flexible tool to use working outside, and they also dry really fast. So with that, I'll need a brush, and I'll tell you more about this brush and how I use my water system in a minute. So I'm going to bring that, which gives me both a sharp line and a water-based line. To contrast the texture, I'm going to bring my Neo Pastels. These are the Neo Pastel 2s. So again, when you add water, these spread around like a paint, which are brilliant, whilst also giving you that beautiful oil pastel kind of grainy mark. And I just upgraded from, I used to store all of these in a sunglasses case, but I was inspired by Melanie Chadwick, who's another amazing artist and YouTuber, who has a very good organisational system for her working outdoor adventures. And she has tins kind of like these for keeping things in. So thank you, Melanie, for the idea, and go and check out her videos because they're beautiful and very relaxing. So I'll take my Neo Pastel 2s, and what else? So we've got some colour coverage, we've got a contrasting texture, and now we want something with a bit of a line. So I think I'm going to bring some pens. I'm going to bring this one. So this is an Ecoline brush pen, which I've been really enjoying using. Again, this is another kind of fairly new material for me, so I'm getting used to it. And I'm going to bring my trusty Posca because I just really, really love that one. Oh, and I'm going to bring this, which is a Lyra Colour Giant, who is just so much fun to use. And that's going to be it. As a caveat, this material selection is definitely geared more towards something that's quick that you can do on your lunch break, on a walk. It's a lightweight setup, so you're not bringing all of your paints with you and working more intensely. So on that note, I'm only bringing one paintbrush, and I try and pick one which is roughly the same height as, like, that will fit inside a water bottle. And because it's clean, I can just put it in with my other materials, but when it's dirty, I can just put it inside and bring it back home like that, so the paint's not going to get all over my backpack. So that is one tip, to get a water bottle and a brush which will fit together. That's really useful. And then you're not also pouring paint water out into the environment, which is, good to avoid at all costs. Next, to bring my materials with me, I have one of these, just a simple kind of plastic casing, and that just nice and snugly fits everything in. So the Inktense pencils, my Neo Pastels, pens, and a pencil, chunky pencil, and that all fits in there. And looking at this, I can't really believe that that's everything, but we're gonna do it. That's what we're bringing, and I'm very proud of myself for not sneaking in another 20 other materials. A quick note on the brush and the bottle setup: don't use your favourite brushes for this. Use really old or cheap ones. To be honest, they're my favourites anyway, because I love to create lots of texture with my brushes, and I love a good scrubby mark. So that's what I normally use anyway, but it's just, if you have expensive brushes, don't use them for this, because keeping them saturated in the water too long won't be good for them. Another thing to think about to have some variety in our sketching is colour. So when we're packing our kit, we want to be considerate of having a bit of a contrast in our colour palette. So to kind of prepare for anything, because sometimes you don't know what you're going to go and draw, I like to have warm colours and cold colours. So like pinks and reds and oranges, yellows and blues and purples. And then I also like to have a contrast of values. So that just means having light colours, so whites, light greys, mid-tones, the kind of in between lights and darks, and then the darks, so the blacks, the dark blues, dark browns, so that you're having that kind of nice light spectrum from light to dark. And with those two considerations, you should have really quite a lot of variety to work with. You're going to want to think about what season it is that you're in, what you need to take on a practical level to be comfortable physically. Right now, I'm in the summertime, so it's really easy. I really don't need to bring much. Probably some sun cream, a hat, and I'm going to bring a fleece just in case it gets windy. You're probably going to want to bring a chair if you're going to be working for any length of time in one place. Personally, I prefer to walk and sketch or just squat or stand, and that's my physical preference, but definitely bring a camping stool or a camping foam mat. They can be really, really helpful for just making the whole thing a lot more comfortable. If you are in a colder climate, I've written a blog post on my winter sketching setup, both what I bring with me materials wise, but more importantly probably for the winter, layering how I stay warm. As a person with Raynaud's, I get really bad circulation in my hands and my feet. So if that is also you and you want to work outside in colder climates, you can check that out, and I'll link it down below to that blog post. And that's it. We're going to get everything packed into our bags and get going. So this is the backpack day pack that I've been using for my sketchbook trips, and it was actually really kindly gifted to me by Passenger, who are the brand that makes this backpack. And I've been using it for the last few months for my sketchbook trips, for daily use as well, for working or for all sorts, going swimming or yoga or whatever. It's such a versatile backpack. But for plein air sketching, it's so good for the side zip, because not only can it fit my huge sketchbooks, this is an A4, but you have this really easy to access side zip. And it's also got this really handy front pocket, which is where I keep most of my materials. Just in there, it slides in that easy. It's got the water bottle holders for my paint water and my drinking water. And it's just really comfortable. And not only is it comfortable, but it comes in the colours of my paintings. So they've got a really beautiful colour selection, and it was actually really hard to choose. So that's a backpack that I use, and if you're in the market for having a dedicated sketching bag so you can just grab it and go on your lunch break or something, this is a really lovely one, and I've really been enjoying using it. Oftentimes, the biggest barrier I find to working outside is the exposure or attention from other people. As an introvert who's very happy working by myself in my studio, it can feel a bit much to suddenly be surrounded by people who might see what you're up to, especially when you're new to drawing or your sketches are in the experimental nature and for the purpose of practice and learning. When I started sketching outside, I lived in the middle of nowhere, and it was really easy to get out into nature and sketch freely with absolutely nobody watching. This definitely got me started and used to the process of working outside, although it definitely didn't make working outside in a more built-up environment around other people any easier. If it's possible, I cannot recommend enough going with a friend. They don't even need to be sketching with you. Just having that company, somebody to chat to, can really help you get the confidence to work outside and also distract you from thinking that other people are watching. If you have any local sketching groups near you, they are also brilliant, and oftentimes you end up learning so much from the people that you head out with. If you are going solo sketching for the first time, then make it as comfortable as you possibly can. Keep things local in areas you know really well and feel safe and comfortable in. Public parks and botanical gardens can also be really great spots to start out working in, not only because you have so much visual information and inspiration to work from, but you can usually find a quiet corner away from other people so you can spread out your equipment a little bit. I think the main thing to remember is that most people will just be impressed or interested if they come over to see what you're up to. And on that note, try not to let a public gaze stop you from experimenting, trying things out, and making just bad drawings in general. I hope the art that I'm showing on screen in real time with you here is an example that you can just completely let loose, try things out, and it doesn't need to be a masterpiece, it doesn't need to be resolved, and it doesn't need to be good. You just need to carry on doing so that you're learning, and that leads us on to point number 4. Point number 4 is all about taking the pressure off. In this point, we get into one way to approach a sketching session and some aims to help us relax and just enjoy the experience. So the number one way I take the pressure off myself is to switch up the point of my sketching session. When I stopped trying to make sketches or pages that were aesthetically beautiful so that I could show them to other people, and instead made the aim to look more at where I was, the drawing process instantly became more fun. When the experience is for you, for the joy of it, the process, the learning, and most importantly, the looking at where you are, I think it inevitably down the line leads to more personal work. You're not instantly going to create incredible drawings with this, but you are going to really get to know your subject matter much better, much faster. The point isn't to make something resolved or critically good, but to gather that inspiration, enjoy the experience, and just be outside noticing where you are. How the drawing turns out is probably at the bottom of the pile of importance for me. My sketching sessions are to enjoy my time outside in nature, to admire the world that we live in, and to be able to loosen up my hands so that when I come back to the studio, I have all of these memories embedded into my head, which never seem to sink in as deep as when I have had a sketching session outside. Our fifth and final point is on making things easier so that we can get started and enjoy the process. If working outside is new for you, then use the drawing processes that you're already most comfortable with. For me, this is usually continuous line drawings. Don't worry about documenting everything you see in front of you. You can draw as much or as little as you like. Sometimes this might be a horizon line or a silhouette. Other times it might be the detail of a path. Other times you might omit houses from a scene and just capture hills, for example. You can do what you like, capture what you like, and that is the beauty of it. In that vein, I think it can really help to pick a focus for the trip. Maybe you're out to find textures or to gather colours. Or maybe you want to practice your line drawing, working more expressively, or trying out value sketches. Deciding this in advance might help you get the ball rolling when you actually get outside. Of course, start out with what interests you and you enjoy noticing too. Maybe you automatically really are drawn to vistas, the cloud patterns, leaf shapes, people in nature, or bark textures. Don't feel forced to draw anything you don't actually want to capture or are interested in your session. We want this to feel good and be about what we're naturally drawn to. And finally, there is no right or wrong in any of this, especially with time. You might hop out for a 5-minute sketch on your break, or head out the door for an hour or for the full day. The point of this is to be fully adaptable to what works in your own schedule and location. So take what you like and leave what doesn't work for you. On my Patreon page, the Outdoor Sketchbook Collective, I create monthly tutorials, videos, studio guides and blog posts to share even more details about my practice and my approach to painting. This month in July 2024, our tutorials are centred around getting into even more nitty-gritty detail about painting and drawing outside. So if you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to learn even more about this topic, you can find that this month over on my Patreon page, the Outdoor Sketchbook Collective, and I'll leave a link to that down below. To wrap up this video, I wanted to share some of the benefits that I find from sketching outside. So first and foremost, it gives me a sense of escapism from the everyday and really helps me relax and quieten my mind. It helps me practice looking, seeing, noticing, and having general awareness of what's around me. It combines a little bit of movement and walking and helps in turn to get me out of my head that way. I tend to experiment more with materials when I'm outside for some reason. It's really helped me to draw much freer and looser, normally because of weather constraints and time constraints. Drawing outside definitely is my most favourite way to soak in new inspiration. I seem to get so much more information into my mind and my memory than I do from looking at a picture on a screen. Sketching has been an amazing break to split up my day, to get away from a screen on my lunch break. And last but not least, it helps me to discover nature in the most unexpected places, which in turn often brings me a deeper appreciation of where I am and brings that special sense of awe that I think we all need in our lives into the everyday. And on that note, it brings us to the end of this video. If you've enjoyed it and you think it might have encouraged you to get outside sketching again, do let me know, leave me a little comment down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you outside.